Are you alone or are you lonely? There is a difference, and it is extremely important to know the difference when you're battling depression. So you're going to want to stick around and watch this entire video so we can discuss the importance of this matter as well as how to deal with it to get out of that depressive funk. What's up, everybody? It is Chris from the Rewired Soul, where we talk about the problem, but we focus on the solution. And this is a depression hacks video, and I'm very happy to do one of these because I haven't done one in a while. But there is a disclaimer with this. With the depression hack series, I'm going to start implementing some of my own personal tips on how to overcome depression. So this one is not going to have as much science as I usually have. I will make another video to actually show you what's going on with the neurotransmitters in your brain when discussing this topic about being alone versus being lonely. So stick around. First, I want to share with you my personal experience. My entire life, I felt like I was alone. A lot of this was when my depression was starting to develop. I felt alone, I felt different. Being the child of an alcoholic mother, that is one of the symptoms. We feel different than all of the other kids that we go to school with. We feel different from society. We feel like our family is different than theirs, and it really is, but it's something that we carry with us for a long time, but it can actually fuel our depression. One of the major issues with this is that it leads us to make very poor decisions and also isolate and sit in our depression. These decisions that I'm talking about, I'll talk about in just a couple minutes. But I dealt with this a lot. I always felt like I was alone. And one of the issues that I struggled with was even when I was in a room of people, even with my friends and family, I felt alone no matter what. So one of the ways that I have battled my depression and overcome my depression is by really separating the difference between am I alone or am I lonely? Because it's very, very important to understand the difference between the two when you're fighting depression. I'm going to give you a word, a vocabulary word, if you will, and I need you to remember it. I need you to somehow tattoo it to your brain. This is extremely important. The best word that I will give you if you are struggling with any type of mental illness. Are you ready for it? Non-identification. Okay, as you can see, I have written it out for you right at the bottom of this screen. Non-identification. This helps in a variety of different ways. What this means is that you are acknowledging that you are not your mental illness. So in this specific case, we are talking about depression, all right? Now, in other cases, this is your anxiety, this is your addiction, this is your bipolar, this is your PTSD, this is something separate from you. The reason why this is so huge and so important is that we start looking at it as something that can actually be tamed, as something we can actually handle, something that we can actually find tools to work with and calm it down. Think of it as having a pet lion and learning how to master it, okay? Because when we sit in the thought that the depression is us, it feels impossible to get out of. So the first step in this is identifying, okay, this is my depression. This is my depression speaking to me. So when you're able to do that, now we can start looking at the difference between alone and lonely. Now, what do I mean by this? Something that I've had to work diligently on is understanding that lonely is a feeling. Alone is a fact. Let me run that back for you real quick. Lonely is a feeling. Alone is a fact. This is extremely important. So when you are having that feeling of being alone, it's important to step back and not identify with that and check in with reality and say, am I really alone or am I just feeling lonely? And when you understand that 99.9% of the time, it is a feeling of loneliness. Now it's something that we can actually work with. Now I understand this is a feeling. And you know what the best part of feelings are? Is that they too shall pass. Because when you have the idea set in your brain, because that depression voice is so loud, that you are alone, what that does is it fuels the beast. It fuels more negative thoughts. It tells you you're alone, you're always going to be alone. Now you start thinking about how nobody likes you, that's why you're alone, and nobody will ever like you, and you're just gonna die this way. And that is a scary, scary, dark place. So we need to sit back and ask ourselves, am I really alone? Or do I have friends? Or do I have family members? Who do I have as part of my support system? Now, I will give you some suggestions on how to do this. I will eventually do a video about how the internet basically saved my life. I was very introverted and isolative, and I didn't like talking to people growing up. I put on a facade like, you know, hey, I'm the class clown and the popular kid and stuff, but I really just felt uncomfortable with people. The internet helped me open up to other people. So one thing I will recommend, like, find Facebook groups, okay? Go on Reddit and find topics that you're interested in. I'll tell you right now, like, a shout out to my man, Roberto Blake. He is a really big YouTuber, and I'm actually in his awesome creator academy. By the way, if you're another creator watching this, like, sign up. It is well worth it. But anyways, I'm amazed at the support that I get in there, just because none of my other friends are in that kind of group with me. You know, my friends, they like the same music as I do. They like TV, they like comics, they like, you know, all this other stuff. But in the Awesome Creator Academy, I could talk about the struggles of being a creator and trying to get this YouTube thing off the ground. And what I'm saying is find a group who has common interests as you, because I'm telling you right now, the other week in the Awesome Creator Academy Mastermind call, we had a talk, and it kind of veered in the way of depression, and we started talking about it. And in these different kinds of support groups, you never know what's gonna come up, and it was so cool being able to share my experience and help others, and they were saying stuff that was helping me, even though I wasn't in my depressive funk. But check out some Facebook groups, look on Reddit, open up to friends and family members. Tell them what you're going through. Talk to your significant other about it. Let them be there for you. Don't let that voice of depression win. That is the worst thing that we can do. Step back and really look at what you do have. And this is where you need to bring in that gratitude list that I mentioned. Like, check it out in the info card, which is above my head somewhere, about my video when it comes to gratitude lists. And something that you can do is, I'm grateful that I have friends to call. I'm grateful that I have coworkers to talk to. I'm grateful that I have my significant other, or my spouse, or my children, or my dog, whatever it is. Because that will help drown out that voice of depression and let you know that you are actually not alone. Now, something that I have to discuss, I absolutely have to, is this idea that we're alone when we're really just lonely when it comes to getting into toxic relationships, okay? What happens for so many of us is that we have such a hard time separating those two things, the lonely feeling and the alone fact, and we're feeling lonely, and what we do is that we jump into a toxic relationship because that voice gets so loud and says, you're alone. So what we try to do to compensate for that is dive into a relationship. And I don't care if they're good for me, bad for me. I don't care if they have a job. I don't even care if, you know, they're a decent person. I will jump into that relationship because my brain is telling me that I'm alone. And I will do a whole nother video about how the best thing I ever did in my life was staying single for a year and a half. Best thing ever happened to me in my life. But really think about that. Think about the situations and consequences you have because you let that voice get into your head that you are alone. Okay? When you get that voice in your head that's saying that you're alone, what do? Are you getting into toxic relationships? For some people, that could just be one-night stands. hating that feeling of alone, so you jump into a risky sexual behavior that ends up hurting you more just because you don't want to feel alone. We need to start turning to our friends, our family members, our support groups, our communities, whatever it is, so we don't fuel the depression or the anxiety even more because of that voice that tells us that we're alone. Now, just to let you know, I have written a book called Hope: How I Overcame Depression, Anxiety, and Addiction, and I discussed my struggles with depression and how I came over it. I have a link to it in the description below if you want to check it out, but just so you know, my depression went from there to there, but it still lingers. I still have that voice in my head. It's a lot quieter than it used to be, but it still tells me that, Chris, you're alone. And the reality is that I'm not alone. I'm not alone. I have so many friends. I have a family who loves and cares about me. I have my beautiful girlfriend. I have my best friend who I can go to with anything. I have other friends who call me and talk to me and chat with me. I have my cat. I have this beautiful cat named Maya.
Ain't that right? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Oh, yeah, okay, I'll put you down, I'll put you down.
It is just fantastic. But trust me, like, I still have that voice that'll tell me, Chris, that you're alone. And that can be very problematic, because then I will start doing behaviors that can hurt me more than help me. So it's very important that I don't identify with it, I acknowledge it, and then I start really becoming self-aware of my reality and understand, okay, that's the depression talking to you right now, Chris. And it becomes easier and easier and easier. So if you watch my other depression hacks videos, you start to realize how we ignite these systems in our brain that help jumpstart other systems. So one thing that I am gonna go into deeper is that isolating fuels depression. So even if, let's say, you're in a depressive funk that's telling you you're alone, all your friends, family members, support group, they're all busy, the best tip that I can give you, and I'll explain the science about this later, just take a book and go sit down in a coffee shop and read, because that will actually start to spark neurotransmitters in your brain just by being around people. Okay? Nobody's depression was ever solved by sitting in a room by themselves, stuck inside of this thing. All right? But that's all I have for today. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And please, please, I'm begging you, if you're watching this video, if there are any topics that I have touched on that you would like me to dive deeper into, leave it in the comments below, because I really want to do a whole relationship series, and I think a lot of you want me to do it too, but I need to hear from you. I am trying to give you what you want, okay? So if you want me to dive more into relationships, toxic relationships, healthy relationships, how to be more self-aware and all those things, leave it in a comment below. If you like these depression hacks videos, please let me know so I can start allocating more of my time to them, all right? But anyways, if you haven't yet, click right below this little box right here. There is a little round subscribe button with my face in it. So make sure you subscribe, keep coming back. And this is Chris from The Rewired Soul, and I'll see you next time.